Welcome to Sleepless Dark Theories, a place where even the strangest secrets are softened into whispers. Tonight, we drift into the desert winds of Nevada, where fences stretch for miles and lights flicker in skies no one can explain. We're talking about Area 51, a name you know, but a truth you've never quite heard like this. No loud speculation, no wild theories shouted in your ear, just calm curiosity. So lay back, close your eyes, and let your mind wander through restricted airspace and forgotten files. This is Sleepless Dark Theories, and tonight, the secrets of Area 51 will help you fall asleep. Hidden deep within the Nevada desert is a place that for decades existed mostly as a rumor. Area 51 is now recognized around the world as a center for stories about UFOs, alien technology, and secret government experiments. For many years, the government said very little about what happened there. It wasn't until 2013 that the CIA officially confirmed the base's existence. But by then, its reputation had already taken on a life of its own. Before we begin, take a moment to settle in and imagine the quiet stillness of the Nevada desert at night. The sky stretches wide, the air is dry and cool, and somewhere beyond the horizon, a story of secrecy and curiosity waits to unfold. Area 51, officially named the Nevada Test and Training Range, sits about 80 miles northwest of Las Vegas. Established in the 1950s, this isolated base began as a top-secret site for testing advanced aircraft during the Cold War. Its remote location and restricted access quickly gave rise to stories of hidden technology and unexplained activity. For decades, the government offered little information about what happened there, leaving the public to wonder. In 2013, the CIA finally acknowledged the base's existence, but by then, Area 51 had already become a magnet for speculation. The combination of secrecy and silence set the stage for one of America's greatest modern mysteries. In the early 1950s, the US government searched for a place where new ideas could be tested far from public view. The Nevada desert, with its vast empty stretches and rugged hills, offered just what they needed. Near a dry lake bed called Groom Lake, workers quietly built a runway and a few basic structures. The location was officially part of the Nevada test site, known for atomic bomb tests. But this section was marked only as Area 51 on old documents. Its isolation meant few would stumble upon it, and those who did would find little explanation. The Cold War demanded innovation and secrecy. The U-2 spy plane was developed to fly higher than any existing aircraft, gathering photographs of distant Soviet bases. Testing and operating such a plane required a place away from curious eyes and ears. Area 51 became that place. Pilots received special instructions before each mission. Some were told their flights didn't exist in any official record. If anything went wrong, there would be no public acknowledgement. The planes flew without markings, and crews followed strict rules about what they could share, even with their families. Secrecy extended beyond the runway. Workers arrived on unmarked planes that flew in from Las Vegas, piloted by civilians who kept their own silence. The base operated on a need-to-know basis. Most workers never knew the full story of what was happening around them. Each person focused on a small part of the project, which helped prevent leaks, but also created an atmosphere where speculation thrived. People passing in the hallways rarely exchanged more than a nod, each wondering about the other's assignment. Local residents and workers at the Nevada test site began to notice strange activity near Groom Lake. Some reported seeing unusual lights moving in ways that didn't match any known aircraft. The military responded with vague explanations, often blaming weather balloons or equipment tests. Official maps omitted Groom Lake, reinforcing its secrecy. Few places hold as much intrigue as Area 51, quietly occupying a corner of Nevada's vast desert. Officially, it's just one part of the Nevada Test and Training Range, a military zone that stretches for miles, swallowing up open land and rugged hills. But for years, this particular spot evaded the public eye. Official maps omitted Groom Lake, reinforcing its secrecy. If you happened to fly overhead or drive nearby, there would be no signs, no fences marked on maps, and no evidence that anything existed beyond the endless sky and desert floor. The base seemed to vanish into the landscape, leaving behind only questions. The desert's isolation felt deliberate. The land here is wide and empty, broken only by the occasional call of a bird or the shifting wind. Even the air above is off limits. The airspace around Area 51 is among the most restricted in the world. Civilian aircraft avoid the area completely, and this only adds to the sense that something unusual is hidden here, far from reach. The location itself became a silent partner in keeping secrets, making it easy for curiosity to grow. Rumors about this hidden place began as early as the 1950s. The Cold War was in full swing, and secrecy was a way of life for the military. The desert wasn't chosen by accident. Its remoteness meant there were no towns nearby, no crowds, and almost no chance of anyone stumbling across the base by mistake. The harsh conditions, scorching days, cold nights, and long silences made it the perfect place to keep new projects away from prying eyes. For a long time, what happened at Area 51 was simply not discussed. The government offered no official word about what lay behind the gates. Decades passed before any real acknowledgement came. When the CIA finally released declassified records in 2013, they described how the base was built for testing advanced aircraft. These documents confirmed that Area 51 had always been about secrecy. But even with some details made public, many questions stayed locked away. By the 1970s, technology gave outsiders a new way to look in. Civilian satellites began capturing images from above, revealing roads, runways, and hangars that spread across the desert floor. The pictures were blurry, but they were enough to spark more curiosity. Why did this spot need so much security and isolation? What kind of work happened in a place so determined to stay out of sight? People living near the area often noticed lights moving in the night sky, sometimes fast, sometimes in patterns that didn't match any known aircraft. These sightings grew more frequent as testing increased. The aircraft being developed here looked different from anything the public had seen. Some moved quickly and sharply, others seemed to hover or change direction in ways that defied what most people expected from planes. For those watching from a distance, there was no way to know what these machines really were. The mystery was never just about the physical isolation. The government's silence fed speculation. If there was nothing unusual to hide, why go to such lengths to keep the area off maps, to restrict airspace, and to avoid answering questions? Even the way officials responded, carefully, with as little information as possible, suggested that something important was being protected. This lack of transparency encouraged people to fill in the blanks with their own ideas. The landscape itself helped keep secrets. Natural barriers and the sheer emptiness made it hard for anyone to get close. The nearest towns are small and far away, making it unlikely that anyone would see or hear much. Former workers recalled strict patrols that discouraged anyone from approaching the perimeter. For most people, the only clues to what happened inside were the stories passed around by locals or the rare glint of something unusual in the sky. Over time, these stories grew. People in nearby towns shared accounts of strange aircraft, odd lights, and shadows that moved across the desert at night. Some described seeing shapes that didn't match any known plane. Others spoke of helicopters flying low, or vehicles moving in and out of the base under cover of darkness. With no official explanations, the tales became more vivid, each retelling adding new details. Area 51's remoteness did more than protect secrets. It invited speculation. The combination of distance, silence, and unanswered questions created the perfect environment for theories to grow. From the first grainy satellite images to the stories of glowing lights, the desert became a stage for one of the world's most enduring mysteries. As the years passed, the base took on a life of its own in the public imagination. Its original purpose as a testing ground faded into legend, replaced by stories of hidden technology and unexplained activity. But the real roots of Area 51's secrecy can be traced back to the tense days of the Cold War, when new threats demanded new solutions, and when the need to see without being seen changed the course of history. While the world outside speculated about the desert's secrets, inside Area 51, a new kind of project was taking shape. The United States, facing mounting Cold War tensions, needed a way to observe its rival without being seen. The answer was the U-2 spy plane, an aircraft designed to soar higher than any other, capturing photographs of distant Soviet installations from the edge of space. At the time, satellites couldn't provide the images or intelligence needed, so the U-2 became a crucial tool, offering a high-altitude window into Soviet territory. Building and testing such a plane required a location that was isolated and secure. Area 51's position beside Groom Lake, far from towns and shielded by natural barriers, made it the ideal choice. The landscape allowed for long runways and protected airspace, while the base's obscurity kept its activities hidden from view. Even within the military, few people knew what was happening there. Most workers and pilots arrived on unmarked flights from Las Vegas, their daily routines carefully separated from the outside world. The first U-2 flights at Area 51 began under strict secrecy. The aircraft's unique design, long, slender wings and a glinting metallic body, stood out even among other advanced planes. At over 70,000 feet, the U-2 could fly above the reach of most radar and missiles. Pilots knew their missions were off the books, part of the strict secrecy that gave rise to rumors. They received cover story briefings and understood that details about their flights would not be shared, even with family. Each sortie was logged in classified records, and only a select few had access to the full purpose behind the missions. The experience of flying the U-2 was unlike anything else. Pilots described the surreal feeling of seeing the curve of the Earth and the darkness of space above. At those heights, the air was thin and the temperatures extreme. Sometimes the planes encountered unexpected vibrations or equipment failures, adding to the sense that these missions pushed the limits of what was possible. When pilots returned, the aircraft were quickly moved into hangars, shielded from view. Only those with the highest clearance could approach, and most personnel worked on small, isolated parts of the overall project. Secrecy was more than a policy, it was a necessity. The U-2 program's success depended on keeping its existence hidden, both to protect the aircraft and to prevent diplomatic fallout. If word leaked about the true nature of the flights, it could undermine the intelligence advantage and provoke unwanted attention from adversaries. The government's silence extended beyond the fence. Officials offered no explanations for the unusual activity near Groom Lake, and any public reports of strange aircraft were quietly dismissed. As the U-2 took to the skies, its high-altitude flights began to catch the attention of people on the ground. The plane's silvery body reflected sunlight long after dusk, appearing as a bright, fast-moving light against the evening sky. To those unfamiliar with the program, these sightings were puzzling. The shape and speed of the U-2 didn't match any known civilian or military aircraft. Reports of unidentified objects started to increase, especially during test flights at sunrise and sunset, when the plane was most visible. Engineers and officials at Area 51 were aware of the growing curiosity. While they did not encourage speculation, they also saw the value in letting rumors run their course. If the public believed they were seeing something mysterious or even otherworldly, it helped mask the reality of the secret projects underway. The government didn't invent stories of alien craft, but the confusion worked in their favor. This unspoken agreement between secrecy and speculation became an unwritten rule at the base. The U-2 was only the beginning. Soon, even more advanced aircraft would arrive at Area 51. The SR-71 Blackbird, with its sharp lines and unmatched speed, joined the roster of secret projects. Each new plane brought more test flights and more sightings. Locals and travelers continued to report unusual lights and shapes in the sky. The base's reputation as a hub of strange activity grew, and the link between Area 51 and the unexplained became stronger. Over time, the stories surrounding Area 51 shifted from whispers among workers to rumors shared by people living miles away. The combination of secrecy, unusual aircraft, and the government's refusal to comment set the stage for something new. These high-flying shapes in the sunset sky would soon be mistaken for something not of this world. Not long after the first classified flights began, reports of unusual sightings started to surface around the Nevada desert. Locals who had grown used to the quiet landscape began noticing more frequent and puzzling activity in the skies. These weren't just distant lights or faint glimmers. People described objects that changed direction sharply, hovered silently, and accelerated in ways that didn't match any aircraft they knew. A rancher near Rachel recalled a silver disc hovering over his field for close to an hour before it shot straight up and disappeared. Truck drivers along the highway talked about glowing shapes that seemed to follow their rigs, only to vanish without a trace. The military's explanations for these sightings rarely satisfied anyone. When asked, officials pointed to weather balloons, reflections, or routine test flights, but those who spent their lives under open skies knew the difference between a familiar plane and something truly odd. The more often these explanations were repeated, the more some residents began to keep their own records, writing down dates, times, and details of what they'd seen. One story from 1974 stands out. A group of surveyors working near the base perimeter reported seeing 3 discs hovering in formation. The objects glowed faintly blue and gave off a low hum. When the surveyors tried to get closer, the discs rose quickly and disappeared. The tales spread through nearby towns, growing with each retelling. The next day, military police visited the men, asking pointed questions and warning them not to discuss what they'd witnessed. The surveyors were left with more questions than answers, and their silence only fueled speculation. Air traffic controllers at nearby radar stations sometimes saw things they couldn't explain either. On occasion, their screens would light up with blips that hovered, then shot away at impossible speeds. These objects didn't respond to radio calls and carried no identification codes. When controllers reported these incidents, they were told to log them as equipment errors and move on. The official line was always the same. Nothing unusual had happened. The secrecy around these sightings created a sense of unease. If these were just military aircraft, why the threats and denials? Why were witnesses pressured to stay quiet? The lack of clear answers led some to wonder whether the government was hiding something even stranger than new planes. The idea that Area 51 might be home to technology not of this world began to take hold. Former base workers sometimes spoke to journalists on the condition of anonymity. One described seeing something in a hangar that didn't look like any plane he'd ever known. Another recalled signing documents swearing him to secrecy about objects he'd seen while on duty. These vague accounts, paired with the official silence, left plenty of room for rumors to grow. The more the government denied, the more convinced some people became that something extraordinary was being hidden in the desert. By the mid-1970s, stories about UFOs near Area 51 had become common. People started coming to the area with cameras and binoculars, hoping for a glimpse of the unexplained. Some claimed to capture photos, but the images were always blurry or inconclusive. In response, the military tightened security, expanded restricted airspace, and increased patrols. Those caught trespassing faced fines or brief detentions, but the increased secrecy only made the base seem more mysterious. Officials continued to avoid giving direct answers. When pressed by journalists, they spoke only about protecting national security and never addressed the specific claims. This lack of transparency frustrated some researchers and encouraged others to fill in the gaps with their own ideas. As the stories spread, the line between fact and speculation blurred, and Area 51's reputation as a place of secrets grew. These early reports and the government's careful silence set the stage for what would come next. In the quiet desert, the first whispers of UFOs had begun to shape Area 51's legend, and the world outside was starting to pay closer attention. As stories of odd lights and strange shapes in the sky spread, the reality behind them was more grounded and more secret than most people guessed. Throughout the Cold War, the US military relied on places like Area 51 to develop aircraft that pushed the limits of what was possible. The U-2 and later the SR-71 Blackbird were built to fly higher and faster than any other planes, gathering intelligence far above the reach of enemy defenses. Their missions depended on secrecy, and their very existence was classified. Yet, as these unusual aircraft began to appear in the skies, they left traces that couldn't be hidden from everyone. The U-2, for example, operated at altitudes that seemed impossible in the 1950s. Commercial pilots and civilians on the ground saw shining dots moving far above what any known plane could reach. Airline pilots reported these sightings to air traffic controllers, describing objects that glowed in the fading light and moved in ways that didn't fit the patterns of normal air traffic. These reports, often labeled as unidentified flying objects, began to pile up. The government, aware of the confusion, chose to respond with silence or vague explanations, blaming weather or atmospheric effects. Behind closed doors, officials recognized an opportunity in the growing UFO rumors. Declassified U-2 program memos later revealed that the official strategy was to neither confirm nor deny reports of strange sightings. This hands-off approach allowed speculation to flourish, creating a natural cover for the real experimental flights. The more people speculated about visitors from other worlds, the less likely they were to guess the truth about what was happening above the desert. Imagine watching those angular shapes tear across a desert dusk. No wonder people whispered about visitors from beyond. The design of these aircraft was unlike anything the public had seen. The A-12 Oxcart, for instance, cut a sharp silhouette against the sky, its titanium skin catching the last rays of sun. The engines produced unfamiliar sounds, sometimes nearly silent until a sudden distant roar. These details made it easy for witnesses to believe they were seeing something otherworldly. The unfamiliar shapes and movements of these planes fed the imagination, and stories of alien craft began to take on a life of their own. As the 1960s and 1970s progressed, the military continued to test even more advanced technology at Area 51. Stealth programs began to emerge, leading to prototypes that looked nothing like conventional planes. The F-117 Nighthawk and other test models had faceted angular bodies designed to deflect radar, giving them an even more unusual appearance. Locals and travelers reported seeing black triangles and fast-moving shadows that seemed to appear and vanish without warning. Each new generation of aircraft brought new waves of sightings and speculation. The government's refusal to provide clear answers only deepened the mystery. When questioned by journalists or local officials, spokespeople stuck to the same careful script. They cited national security and avoided direct responses. This lack of transparency encouraged people to fill in the gaps themselves. Soon, television specials and books began to explore the idea that Area 51 was not just a testing ground, but a place where the government hid evidence of contact with extraterrestrial life. For the military, the spread of UFO stories was both a shield and a challenge. On one hand, the rumors helped to protect classified projects, allowing new aircraft to be tested without drawing unwanted attention to their real purpose. On the other hand, the legends grew beyond anyone's control. As more people became interested in the mystery, the base attracted visitors, amateur investigators, and even journalists, hoping to uncover the truth. The government's continued secrecy only fueled suspicions and made the stories more compelling. By the 1980s, Area 51 had become the centerpiece of American UFO lore. Theories about alien spacecraft, secret technology, and hidden evidence filled newspapers, documentaries, and late-night radio shows. Some believed the government was reverse engineering alien technology, while others claimed that strange materials or even extraterrestrial bodies were stored in underground bunkers. The line between fact and fiction blurred, and the legend of Area 51 grew larger than the reality it had once concealed. Over time, the government acknowledged that many UFO sightings in the 1950s and 1960s could be traced back to classified reconnaissance programs. These admissions, though, did little to quiet the speculation. By then, the myth had become a part of popular culture, and every new revelation seemed to raise more questions than it answered. The cover story had served its purpose, but it also created a mystery that would prove impossible to contain. The desert's silence, combined with decades of secrecy and the steady trickle of unexplained sightings, had transformed Area 51 into a symbol of the unknown. As stories about hidden technology and strange visitors continued to circulate, another legend was quietly taking shape, one that would link the base to a crash in New Mexico and add a new layer to the growing mythology. The Roswell incident stands as one of the earliest and most influential stories in the Area 51 legend. In July 1947, a rancher near Roswell, New Mexico, discovered strange debris scattered across his property. The military's first press release described the recovery as a flying disc, a statement that made headlines across the country. Within hours, however, officials changed their story, insisting the wreckage was nothing more than a weather balloon. This abrupt shift in the official account raised immediate suspicions and set the stage for decades of speculation about what truly crashed in the desert. Many believe the story did not end in Roswell. According to conspiracy theories, the debris, and possibly more, was quietly transported out of New Mexico. Area 51's remote and heavily guarded location made it the perfect candidate for further investigation. Witnesses at the time described military vehicles arriving at the crash site, loading up mysterious metallic fragments, and heading off under tight security. Some claim these convoys traveled west, and that the real analysis of whatever fell from the sky began not in Roswell, but in the secret hangars of Nevada. What makes the Roswell wreckage so compelling are the details shared by those who claim to have seen or handled it. Some described thin metal-like material that would return to its original shape when crumpled, while others spoke of lightweight fragments that seemed unusually strong. These stories fueled the idea that the debris came from technology far beyond what was possible in 1947. Theories grew that Area 51 became the site where this material was studied, away from public view and far from the questions of local reporters. Over the years, military personnel involved in the Roswell recovery offered conflicting accounts. Some continued to support the weather balloon explanation, while others hinted at something more unusual. A few even suggested that bodies, possibly not human, were recovered alongside the debris. Although these accounts remain unverified, they have become part of the wider mythology that surrounds both Roswell and Area 51. The lack of a single consistent explanation left an open space for the imagination to fill. Archival records from the late 1940s show a flurry of unusual activity at military bases near Roswell. Flight logs document unscheduled trips to Nevada, and supply orders indicate requests for specialized equipment that did not fit routine needs. While there are many possible explanations for these records, those who believe in the Roswell Area 51 connection see them as evidence of a secret transfer operation. By the 1980s, the Roswell incident and Area 51 had become firmly linked in the public mind. Researchers pointed out that the expansion of Area 51 as a major testing site happened not long after the Roswell crash. The timing led some to suggest the base was built up specifically to house and study whatever was recovered in New Mexico. The idea that alien technology was being reverse engineered in the Nevada desert caught on, especially as more stories surfaced about secret hangars and underground labs. The government's response to questions about Roswell only deepened the mystery. Freedom of Information Act requests often led to heavily redacted documents, and official explanations shifted over time, from weather balloon to secret spy plane to high-altitude research device. Each new version seemed to raise more questions than it answered, making it harder for the public to trust that the full story had ever been told. Some former workers at Area 51 have anonymously described labs where scientists examined unusual alloys and tried to unlock their secrets. These accounts, though never confirmed, suggest a long-running effort to understand and perhaps replicate the technology from Roswell. Satellite images of the base show massive hangars and restricted areas, fueling speculation about what might be hidden inside. The Roswell story has grown through movies, television, and books, often blurring the line between fact and fiction. For many, the connection between the 1947 crash and Area 51 feels obvious, even if no official document has ever confirmed it. The government's silence and the scattered details have left plenty of space for theories to take root. Even now, the Roswell connection remains a central part of Area 51's mystique. The absence of clear answers keeps the questions alive, and the story continues to evolve as each new generation looks back at those strange days in the desert. The question of whether Roswell and Area 51 are truly connected, or if their link is simply a product of coincidence and imagination, has become one of the most enduring debates in UFO history. The Roswell incident, with its strange debris and shifting official explanations, set the stage for decades of suspicion. But it wasn't until years later, after Area 51 entered public awareness as a site of secret aviation projects, that people began to draw a line between the two. At first, Roswell was just a curious story from the late 1940s, quickly dismissed by the government and largely forgotten by the public. Area 51, meanwhile, didn't even officially exist when the Roswell crash occurred. The Nevada base only began operations in the mid-1950s, focused on testing advanced military aircraft. It was the secrecy surrounding both events that eventually brought them together in the public mind. As tales of recovered alien materials from Roswell resurfaced in the late 1970s and 1980s, and as rumors swirled about what was happening at Area 51, the two stories began to merge. One of the main reasons for this connection is the persistent theory that the unusual debris found in Roswell was transported to Area 51 for analysis. Witnesses in New Mexico described materials that defied easy explanation: thin metal that was both lightweight and incredibly strong, and foil that would flatten but then spring back to shape. The military's quick removal of the wreckage, followed by years of silence, led some to believe that these materials could not have simply disappeared. Area 51, with its reputation for secrecy and its remote, highly secure location, became the obvious candidate for where such analysis might have taken place. The timing also seemed to fit. As Area 51 grew into a major center for testing experimental aircraft, people began to wonder if the base's true purpose was even more mysterious. The idea that technology from Roswell could have contributed to breakthroughs in aviation and engineering became a popular thread in UFO lore. Some suggested that the rapid advances seen at the base were the result of studying materials or technology not of this world. But the Roswell story did not become a household name until decades after the crash. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, retired military officers and intelligence officials began to speak more openly. Some claimed that the Roswell incident involved not just strange debris, but also the recovery of non-human bodies. These statements reignited public curiosity. Around the same time, stories about secret projects at Area 51 were gaining traction in the media. the two narratives fused, and suddenly, Roswell and Area 51 were at the heart of America's most persistent UFO legends. Why did Roswell, and not another unexplained incident, become so central to the Area 51 mythos? Part of the answer lies in the details of the case. The original military press release announcing the recovery of a flying disc, followed by an abrupt retraction, left a lasting impression. Unlike other mysterious crashes, Roswell produced a trail of witnesses who, even years later, described materials and events that didn't match official explanations. The military's inconsistent messaging only added to the sense that something important was being concealed. The cultural context of the time played a role as well. The years after World War II were marked by rapid technological progress and a growing fascination with space. Science fiction was becoming a mainstream interest, and the idea of alien visitors no longer seemed impossible. When Area 51 emerged as a place of deep secrecy and advanced research, it was easy for the public to imagine that the two stories were connected by more than just rumor. Some researchers have pointed to other possible destinations for the Roswell debris, such as Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Still, Area 51 dominates the conversation because of its enduring association with the unknown, the base's isolation, its history of classified work, and the steady stream of rumors about underground labs and hidden hangars all make it a natural focus for theories about alien technology. In the 1980s, as the Roswell story was revived and popular culture embraced tales of government cover-ups, Area 51 became central to the narrative. Connecting Roswell to the Nevada base kept the mystery alive, even without direct evidence. The logic was simple. If the government wanted to hide something extraordinary, Area 51 was the perfect place to do it. One of the most controversial insiders is Bob Lazar, though many question his credentials and details. He claimed to have worked near Area 51, where he said he helped reverse engineer technology from recovered alien craft. Lazar described a substance called Element 115 as the key to these crafts' propulsion. At the time, no such element had been created in laboratories, and when it was first synthesized decades later, it existed only in unstable, short-lived forms. Lazar's claim that a stable isotope-powered alien technology remains unproven and is rejected by the scientific community. Critics also point to gaps in his background and past legal troubles when evaluating his credibility. Regardless of his veracity, Lazar's tale has become part of Area 51's enduring mythology. As stories and theories continue to circulate, the Roswell connection remains a central theme in discussions about Area 51. The combination of missing answers, shifting official stories, and the testimonies of those who claim to know more ensures the debate will go on. In the next part of our story, we'll look more closely at the claims that have kept Area 51 in the spotlight and the individuals whose accounts have shaped the legend. One of the most controversial insiders is Bob Lazar, though many question his credentials and details. In 1989, Lazar appeared on a Las Vegas news program and told a story that quickly captured public attention. He claimed to have worked at a secret facility called S4, located near Area 51. According to Lazar, his job was to help reverse engineer alien spacecraft stored in hidden hangars. He described seeing 9 flying saucers and provided specific details about their appearance, operation, and even the way they were housed. These accounts, along with his calm and technical delivery, added to the intrigue. Central to Lazar's claims was his description of the craft's propulsion system. He said the vehicles were powered by a then unknown element, Element 115. Lazar explained that this element served as both the fuel and the source of gravity manipulation, allowing the craft to bend space-time and perform maneuvers impossible for any human technology. He insisted he had seen and worked with this material firsthand. At the time, Element 115 did not exist on the periodic table. and his description of its properties was met with skepticism by scientists. It wasn't until 2003 that researchers managed to synthesize a few atoms of element 115, though only in unstable forms that quickly decayed. The exotic, stable isotope Lazar described remains unproven. Lazar's background became a focal point for critics. He claimed to have advanced degrees from MIT and Caltech, but neither institution had any record of his attendance. When questioned about this, Lazar said the government had erased his educational history as part of a cover-up. Some evidence confirmed that he worked as a technician at Los Alamos National Laboratory, but not in the high-level scientific role he suggested. These inconsistencies led many to doubt the truth of his entire story. Despite the skepticism, Lazar's technical descriptions fascinated many researchers and enthusiasts. He described the interiors of the craft as having seats suited for much smaller beings and control panels marked with symbols unlike any human language. He claimed the propulsion system generated a gravitational field, allowing for instant direction changes and rapid acceleration. These details, while unverified, echoed reports from other UFO witnesses and helped cement his story in the wider lore. Security at S4, according to Lazar, was intense. He spoke of daily fingerprint and retinal scans, briefcases chained to wrists, and constant surveillance. While some of these measures resembled known security protocols for classified projects, others seemed extreme. The government, when asked about Lazar and S4, responded with vague statements or refused to comment, which only fueled further speculation. The scientific community largely dismissed Lazar's claims. Physicists pointed out that the properties he attributed to element 115 did not match what was observed when it was finally synthesized. His explanations for gravity manipulation and craft design contained errors and contradictions. Most experts concluded that his account was either a fabrication or a misunderstanding of advanced but earthly technology. Lazar's personal history added more complexity. He faced legal troubles unrelated to Area 51, which critics often cite when evaluating his credibility. Still, friends and some former colleagues recalled that Lazar had a genuine interest in advanced science and technology, and he sometimes discussed theoretical physics in detail before going public. Whether this knowledge came from legitimate study or self-education remains unclear. Regardless of his veracity, Lazar's tale has become part of Area 51's enduring mythology. His story inspired countless books, documentaries, and debates about what might be hidden in the Nevada desert. Models of the craft he described and discussions of element 115 now appear in museums and tourist stops near the base. The questions he raised about secrecy, technology, and the limits of human knowledge continue to spark curiosity. Area 51's reputation for secrecy and the persistent rumors about hidden technology have kept the public's imagination active for decades. Yet, behind the stories and speculation, there are also practical questions about how such a place operates in total secrecy. The next layer of the mystery involves not just what is hidden, but how it is funded and maintained, far from the scrutiny of the outside world. The world of Area 51 is shaped not just by what happens behind its fences, but by how those activities are paid for. At the heart of its secrecy lies the black budget, a system that funnels money into classified projects, far from public or congressional oversight. These funds are shielded from scrutiny, allowing research and development to proceed in complete secrecy. Billions flow unseen, and our imaginations fill the void. The black budget system emerged during the Cold War, when national security demanded new levels of confidentiality. Funding for certain projects was tucked away in classified sections of defense bills, bypassing normal approval processes. Today, the system persists, with money moving through shell accounts and private contractors, each step designed to obscure the true destination and purpose. Even those with high-level clearance often see only fragments of the financial picture. Contenders at Area 51 sign agreements for projects that, on paper, do not exist. Their pay may come from anonymous holding companies, and equipment purchases are buried under vague labels such as advanced aerospace development. This web of secrecy makes it nearly impossible for outsiders to follow the money trail. Only a handful of congressional leaders receive limited briefings, and even then, details are scarce. Supporters of black budget funding argue that this level of secrecy is necessary. Protecting breakthroughs in military technology, they say, keeps the country safe from espionage and preserves a strategic advantage. Critics, however, worry that the lack of oversight opens the door to waste, abuse, or even projects that the public would never approve if they knew the full story. The debate between security and transparency has never been resolved. What exactly is funded at Area 51 remains a matter of speculation. Some believe these funds support the study and reverse engineering of recovered alien technology. Others point to more conventional, but still extraordinary projects: experimental aircraft, stealth technology, and advanced propulsion systems. Declassified documents from earlier decades confirm that some black budget money went toward developing stealth planes and reconnaissance systems. Leaked references to exotic materials and new propulsion methods suggest that research continues to push the boundaries of science. The sums involved are believed to be enormous. Estimates suggest that black budget allocations for places like Area 51 could support multiple large-scale projects at once. Security alone consumes a significant portion, with constant patrols, surveillance, and background checks for every worker. These precautions are considered essential to keep secrets safe, but they also reinforce the sense of isolation that surrounds the base. The secrecy itself creates a cycle. The less information is available, the more people speculate about what might be hidden. Each rumor or theory about alien technology or advanced weapons makes officials more cautious about revealing anything at all. This feedback loop ensures that the mysteries only grow deeper with each passing year. Occasionally, small glimpses of the financial system behind Area 51 come to light. Documents may show funds routed through a series of companies with no clear purpose, or invoices for equipment that cannot be traced to any known project. These fragments hint at a parallel world of spending, one that operates outside normal rules and leaves few traces behind. Despite the questions, those in charge believe the results justify the secrecy. Technologies developed in hidden programs sometimes emerge decades later, changing what is possible in aviation, defense, and beyond. Stealth aircraft, for example, move from secret test flights to frontline service after years in the shadows. The same pattern may hold for today's most closely guarded research. Still, the lack of transparency comes at a cost. Audits are limited and oversight committees receive only partial information. The system protects secrets, but it can also erode public trust. As methods used at Area 51 spread to other classified programs, the culture of secrecy expands, making it harder for citizens to know how their money is spent. Financial leaks and rare declassifications offer only the briefest glimpses into this hidden world. Each new piece of information raises more questions than it answers, and with each untracked dollar, the mysteries only deepen under the desert sun. Sometimes, all it takes is one person stepping forward to change what we think we know about those secrets. Bob Lazar's story stands out as one of the most widely discussed and debated chapters in the Area 51 narrative. In 1989, Lazar appeared on a Las Vegas news program and described his alleged work at a site called S4, just south of Area 51. He claimed his job was to reverse engineer technology from alien spacecraft, an assertion that immediately drew both fascination and skepticism. According to Lazar, 9 different crafts were stored in hidden hangars, each with designs and features he said were not of human origin. Lazar's descriptions of these craft focused on their unusual movement and advanced propulsion. He said the vehicles could generate their own gravitational fields, allowing them to move in ways that defied known physics. Sudden stops, sharp turns, and silent hovering. He described seeing these craft in operation, noting how their flight patterns seemed impossible when compared to any known aircraft. These claims captured the public's imagination, but they also raised questions from scientists and engineers who found the explanations hard to accept. Central to Lazar's account was his mention of element 115. At the time, no such element existed on the periodic table. Lazar stated that this mysterious material powered the alien craft, serving as both an energy source and the means to manipulate gravity. He described a process where element 115, when bombarded with protons, would produce gravity waves, supposedly the key to the extraordinary flight capabilities he witnessed. This explanation was detailed and technical, but it quickly drew criticism from the scientific community. Physicists pointed out that no known element could produce these effects, and the concept of gravity manipulation remained firmly in the realm of science fiction. Years after Lazar's claims, scientists did manage to synthesize element 115 in a laboratory. However, the version created, known as moscovium, was unstable, existing only for a fraction of a second before decaying. The properties Lazar described, especially the idea of a stable isotope capable of powering spacecraft, have never been observed. This major difference between Lazar's account and real-world science has been a sticking point for skeptics ever since. Lazar's background added more uncertainty. He said he held advanced degrees from MIT and Caltech, but neither institution had records of his attendance. When pressed, Lazar claimed the government erased his educational history to discredit him, but this explanation was difficult to prove or disprove. Some evidence confirmed he worked as a technician at Los Alamos National Laboratory, but not in the scientific capacity he often implied. These inconsistencies led many to question whether he was telling the truth or simply weaving a compelling story. Despite these doubts, some details in Lazar's account have given pause to researchers and enthusiasts. He described hand scanners at S4 that measured bone density for security access, a technology that seemed unusual at the time but was later confirmed to exist in other classified settings. He also mentioned the layout of certain buildings and security routines at Area 51, details that matched later reports from other sources. These small points have kept some people from dismissing his story outright, even as the larger claims remain unproven. The government's response to Lazar's allegations was mostly silence. Officials did not directly address his claims, nor did they offer a clear denial. This lack of comment fueled further speculation. For those already mistrustful of official statements, the absence of a rebuttal seemed like a quiet confirmation that something unusual might be happening behind closed doors. Lazar also spoke about the impact his revelations had on his personal life. He described being followed, his phone tapped, and experiencing a sense of constant surveillance. While these claims have not been independently verified, they added to the air of intrigue that surrounds his story. For some, the idea that he faced harassment suggested he was telling the truth. For others, it was a way to explain away the lack of concrete evidence. Decades after his first interview, Lazar's story continues to divide opinion. The scientific consensus remains that his descriptions of alien technology and element 115 are unsupported by evidence or physics. However, his narrative persists, in part because it taps into larger questions about secrecy, advanced research, and the unknown. The details he provided, whether accurate or not, have become woven into the broader legend of Area 51. Lazar rarely speaks publicly now, but when he does, he stands by his account. His calm tone and consistent retelling have helped keep his story alive, even as experts continue to point out the flaws and contradictions. The legacy of his claims is found not just in the specifics, but in the way they have shaped public perceptions of Area 51. His story remains suspended between belief and doubt, fueling curiosity about what might be hidden in the Nevada desert. While the speculation about Area 51 often shifts from what can be seen to what might be concealed below ground, stories circulate about tunnels and hidden laboratories, suggesting a world beneath the Nevada desert that's even more secretive than the one above. Over the years, these theories have been fueled by accounts from former workers, bits of technical data, and the simple fact that so little is known about what happens at the site. Some of the earliest hints about underground construction come from those who worked on the base in the 1950s. They recall excavation projects that went far beyond what ordinary foundations would require. There are stories of sections where workers dug deep into the desert floor, only to be reassigned or told not to ask questions about the purpose of the space they'd created. A few former employees mention restricted elevator access to areas they never saw again, suggesting that not everything at Area 51 was meant to be visible or easily reached. Seismic surveys conducted around the area have revealed patterns that don't match the natural geology of the region. Geologists have pointed out anomalies, large, regular shapes below the surface that are unlikely to be natural caves. These readings hint at the possibility of man-made cavities, some spanning hundreds of feet. The absence of public geological reports, due to the classified nature of the site, has only added to the mystery. Without clear answers, it's easy to imagine that these underground spaces serve as the real heart of Area 51's operations. Power usage at the base also raises questions. Experts who have analysed satellite thermal images and available energy data note that Area 51 consumes far more electricity than its visible buildings would require. Some suggest that this excess power supports climate-controlled labs or large-scale computing facilities below ground. While there are conventional explanations like radar testing or specialised storage, the scale of the energy draw keeps the idea of underground labs alive in the minds of many observers. There are occasional references in leaked documents and contractor manuals that seem to support the existence of subsurface areas. Memos from the 1970s mention lower-level security protocols, while handbooks from the 1990s outline emergency procedures for subsurface incidents. Although these references are brief and lack detail, they provide small pieces of a much larger puzzle. Without full context, it's impossible to know exactly what these terms mean, but their presence in official paperwork is enough to keep speculation going. Accounts from former workers sometimes include descriptions of long corridors, thick security, and areas accessible only with special clearance. Some mention the use of biometric scanners and heavy surveillance in parts of the base that aren't marked on any public map. These stories, while unverified, align with what is known about security at other sensitive government installations. The combination of tight access controls and deep foundations makes it plausible that at least some activities are hidden underground. Even the way supplies are delivered to Area 51 has raised eyebrows. There are reports of trucks arriving with sealed containers, bypassing standard inspection points and unloading at docks that seem to descend below the surface. Logistics workers have described moving equipment to locations that don't match the visible layout of the base. These observations are not proof, but they add to the sense that the visible base is only a small part of a much larger operation. The geological makeup of the Nevada desert would allow for tunneling, though it would require careful engineering to maintain stability and manage temperature and humidity. The challenges are significant, but not beyond the capabilities of Cold War-era construction teams, especially given the resources and secrecy available to a project like Area 51. Maintenance for such spaces would be ongoing, with systems for air filtration, water management, and structural monitoring. Budget records sometimes show unusually large allocations for environmental control, which could support either advanced surface operations or something deeper. No direct evidence has ever confirmed the existence of vast underground labs or tunnels at Area 51. Still, the combination of deep foundations, seismic anomalies, unexplained power usage, and scattered references in official documents keeps the theory alive. It's a mystery that persists precisely because there is so little information to either prove or disprove it. What might lie beneath, unseen by satellite, buried in those silent halls? The question lingers, inviting us to look past the obvious and wonder about the unseen layers of one of the world's most secretive places. The idea that Area 51's true secrets lie underground is often called the underground complex theory. On the surface, the base looks sparse, just a collection of hangars, a few long runways, and some scattered buildings. But many notice how little of the facility's massive land area is actually covered by visible structures. This has led to questions about whether the real work happens out of sight, shielded not just by fences and guards, but by layers of earth and rock. The theory suggests that Area 51's most sensitive projects are hidden below ground, where they are protected from prying eyes and satellite cameras. Some former employees have described unusually deep foundations and restricted elevator access to lower levels. These accounts, while never fully confirmed, are consistent in their details. Certain areas could only be reached by those with the highest clearance, and some workers were reassigned if they asked too many questions about what lay beneath. The base's strict compartmentalization means that even those on the inside rarely see the full picture, which helps keep rumors alive. Geological surveys and seismic studies of the region have added to the speculation. The area around Groom Lake is made up of compact soil and stable rock, making it suitable for deep excavation. Seismic readings have revealed regular geometric anomalies beneath the surface, patterns that don't match the natural geology of the region. These shapes could be explained by large man-made cavities or tunnels. While these findings are not proof, they are enough to keep the theory in play for those who follow the story closely. Another detail that draws attention is the base's power usage. Satellite images and energy data indicate that Area 51 consumes far more electricity than its above-ground buildings would require. Some experts believe this extra power supports labs or secure facilities below the surface, where climate control and equipment would need a steady supply of energy. While there are other possible explanations, like radar arrays or communications equipment, the scale of the power draw is hard to ignore. There are also references in a handful of declassified documents and contractor manuals that hint at subsurface structures. Security handbooks from past decades mention lower-level access protocols and emergency procedures for subsurface incidents. Although these references are brief and lack detail, they offer small hints that at least some underground activity is part of daily operations at the base. It's not enough to confirm the existence of a vast subterranean complex, but it does suggest that some work is done below ground. The base's location in the Nevada desert helps make such construction possible. The flat, open land and the natural isolation provide the perfect environment for both secrecy and engineering. Building downward rather than upward offers insulation from the desert's extreme temperatures and shields sensitive projects from aerial surveillance. Underground facilities would also be less likely to attract attention from satellites or passing aircraft, and they could be expanded over time without leaving obvious traces. Some researchers point to comparisons with other secure government sites. Facilities like the Cheyenne Mountain Complex in Colorado or Raven Rock in Pennsylvania have extensive tunnels and chambers carved out of rock. If such infrastructure is possible elsewhere, it seems plausible that Area 51 could have its own network of underground rooms and corridors. The difference, of course, is that Area 51's details remain classified, so the public can only guess at what might be hidden. There are no credible reports of massive underground trains or hyperloop systems connecting Area 51 to distant locations. Most of the speculation centers on deep foundations, sealed corridors, and secure elevator shafts, features that would make sense for a base focused on secrecy. Occasionally, former workers have mentioned seeing trucks unload cargo at odd hours or supplies routed to locations that don't match the surface map. These stories remain unverified, but they add to the sense that what is visible is only a small part of the whole. The most direct evidence for the underground complex theory is circumstantial. Lawsuits from contractors in the 1990s described exposure to chemicals and waste disposal methods that involve burying materials beneath the desert floor. While these accounts focus on environmental risks, they also suggest a history of significant underground activity. When you combine this with the base's unusual energy consumption, seismic anomalies, and scattered references to lower levels, the theory remains difficult to dismiss outright. For now, the real extent of any underground network at Area 51 is unknown. There are stories, hints, and patterns that suggest more than meets the eye, but no definitive proof has ever surfaced. The lack of clear answers keeps people wondering about the scale and purpose of what might exist below. What might lie beneath, unseen by satellite, buried in those silent halls? The question remains, especially as we consider how the search for answers often blurs the line between the limits of human technology and the possibility of something more. Some of the most persistent questions about Area 51 focus on the origins of the technology developed there. For decades, the base has been known for testing advanced military aircraft, from the U-2 spy plane in the 1950s to the SR-71 Blackbird and beyond. These projects pushed the boundaries of what was possible in aviation, introducing speeds, altitudes, and capabilities that seemed almost futuristic for their time. Yet, as each new breakthrough emerged, some observers began to wonder whether all of these innovations could really be explained by human ingenuity alone. Stealth technology is often at the center of this debate. In the 1970s, the F-117 Nighthawk appeared with its sharp, angular design and radar-evading abilities. Its look and function was so different from anything the public had seen that some described it as alien in appearance. While a few believe such leaps must have come from studying something not of this world, most experts trace the development of stealth to years of classified research by engineers and scientists. They point to a trail of technical papers, wind tunnel tests, and early prototypes that show a steady, if secret, progression from concept to reality. Reverse engineering as a method has long helped militaries learn enemy tech. During wartime, engineers would study captured equipment to understand and improve upon it. At Area 51, this practice is rumored to go further. Some claim the base is not just about dissecting foreign jets, but about studying technology from crashed objects that might not be human in origin. Theories about reverse engineering alien craft are fueled by stories from whistleblowers and supposed eyewitnesses who describe propulsion systems and materials that defy current science. Bob Lazar's accounts remain some of the most discussed. He described working on craft powered by an unknown fuel, element 115, which he claimed could generate gravity waves and allow for movement beyond the limits of known physics. While these claims are highly contested and not supported by mainstream science, they have become a key part of the Area 51 legend. Scientists point out that element 115, when finally synthesized, was highly unstable and decayed almost instantly, nothing like the stable, powerful material Lazar described. Still, the idea lingers in popular culture, suggesting a gap between what is officially acknowledged and what might be possible. On the other hand, many aerospace engineers explain that what looks like sudden progress is often the result of years of hidden work. Technologies like stealth coatings and advanced composites were tested in secret long before they appeared in public. The F-117's unique shape, for example, was the product of mathematical modeling and trial and error experiments, not alien blueprints. These projects are compartmentalized, with teams working on small parts of a larger puzzle, which adds to the sense of secrecy and fuels speculation when the finished product is finally revealed. Materials are another point of contention. Some witnesses claim to have seen or handled metals that were unusually light, strong, or able to return to their original shape after being bent. These stories echo the descriptions of debris from incidents like Roswell. Skeptics argue that such accounts are exaggerated or misunderstood, while believers see them as proof of something extraordinary. In reality, the development of new alloys and composites has been a focus of military research for decades, and many advances have eventually become public knowledge. The rapid rise of drone technology is sometimes cited as another example of possible reverse engineering. Today's unmanned aerial vehicles can perform complex maneuvers, operate autonomously, and carry advanced sensors. Some theorists connect these capabilities to secret research at places like Area 51, suggesting that the speed of progress hints at outside influence. However, experts in robotics and aviation point to a long history of incremental improvements, with each generation building on the last. The secrecy surrounding Area 51 creates an environment where any unexplained advance can be linked to hidden sources. When the government offers no explanation for new technology, it leaves space for theories to grow. The mystery is only deepened by the base's reputation for strict compartmentalization and the lack of public information about what happens there. For some, this is enough to believe that something unusual is being studied or even replicated. Mainstream science tends to favor more conventional explanations. Breakthroughs often feel sudden because the public only learns about them after years of classified work. The jet engine, nuclear power, and even the first computers all seem miraculous when first revealed, yet each was the product of long, hidden development. Area 51's role as a test site for experimental aircraft fits this pattern, with secrecy fueling both real progress and wild speculation. So, are these leaps in tech purely human genius, or whispers of something more? The debate continues, shaped by the lack of clear answers and the base's enduring silence. Some look for evidence of hidden knowledge, while others see the result of brilliant minds working in secret. Either way, the search for the truth behind Area 51's technology always seems to lead to more questions. Especially when some believe there may be forces guiding these secrets from the shadows. Among the many stories that circulate about Area 51, few are as persistent or as mysterious as the tale of Majestic 12, often called MJ12. This alleged secret committee is said to have been created to manage everything the US government knows about extraterrestrial encounters and technology. According to believers, MJ12 operates outside standard government oversight, making decisions about alien technology, reverse engineering, and even contact with non-human beings, all without answering to elected officials or the public. The group's existence has never been confirmed, but the idea remains a central thread in many Area 51 conspiracy theories. Interest in MJ12 began in the 1980s, when a batch of documents surfaced, supposedly leaked from government archives. These papers describe President Truman authorizing a group of 12 high-ranking military leaders and scientists to handle UFO matters after the events at Roswell. Some of the names matched known officials from that era, which lent the story some initial credibility. However, researchers quickly noticed inconsistencies in the document's language, formatting, and even the way dates were written. Some experts argued that the letterheads and signatures seemed authentic, but others pointed out factual errors and anachronisms that didn't fit the time period. The US government neither confirmed nor denied the document's authenticity, a silence that only encouraged more speculation. Forensic analysis of the MJ12 documents has never produced a clear answer. Some details, like postmarks and certain technical terms, line up with what was known at the time. Other elements, such as typographical mistakes and awkward phrasing, suggest a hoax. The debate has divided researchers for decades. Some see the documents as clever forgeries designed to mislead, while others believe they contain real information that was deliberately muddied to provide plausible deniability. The lack of a definitive answer has helped the MJ12 story endure, as each new analysis seems to raise more questions than it answers. According to the theory, MJ12 would explain much of the secrecy and confusion surrounding Area 51, The committee is said to control access to any recovered alien technology, oversee reverse engineering projects, and decide what information, if any, should be shared with the public. This idea offers a tidy explanation for the layers of security and compartmentalization at the base. If MJ-12 exists, it would mean a small group has shaped the course of technological development and possibly even human history, all from behind closed doors. Some former workers at Area 51 have described receiving orders from officials they couldn't identify, or being briefed by people who didn't appear in any standard chain of command. These stories are vague and impossible to verify, but they add to the sense that something unusual is happening behind the scenes. For some, these accounts suggest nothing more than the complexity of classified military work. For others, they are hints of a shadowy committee guiding the most secret projects. The timing of MJ-12's supposed creation fits the narrative that emerged after the Roswell incident. The documents claim that President Truman formed the group in 1947, right after the crash, to ensure that any discoveries would be managed at the highest level. Skeptics point out that there are no official records or credible witnesses to support this, and that other secret projects from the era, like the Manhattan Project, were eventually documented, even if only decades later. The absence of any concrete record for MJ-12 stands out, especially in an age when so many secrets have eventually come to light. MJ-12's alleged activities go beyond just Area 51. Conspiracy theories link the group to UFO sightings around the world, claims of recovered alien bodies, and even the suppression of technologies that could change society. Some say MJ-12 has staged gradual disclosures to prepare the public for the truth, while others accuse it of hiding information that could solve pressing global problems. These claims are difficult to test, and the lack of hard evidence keeps the debate going. The appeal of the MJ-12 theory is easy to understand. It provides a simple explanation for complex mysteries, placing responsibility for decades of secrecy in the hands of a few powerful individuals. The idea that a hidden group could control access to knowledge about extraterrestrial life is both frightening and oddly reassuring. It suggests that even in a world of uncertainty, someone is in charge. Modern technology makes it harder than ever to keep secrets, but the MJ-12 enigma persists. No whistleblower has produced definitive proof, and no leaked document has ended the debate. For those who believe, this is just another sign of how effective MJ-12 must be. For skeptics, it's evidence that the group never existed outside of rumor and imagination. Area 51's real history of classified projects and extreme secrecy makes the MJ-12 story seem just plausible enough to endure. Whether or not the committee exists, the legend speaks to deeper questions about power, secrecy, and the limits of what we are allowed to know. And as the stories grow, some take the mysteries beneath the desert in even stranger directions, raising questions that move beyond technology and into the boundaries of what it means to be human. While no credible proof exists, some conspiracy voices speak of hybrid programs rumored to take place in the shadows of Area 51. These stories suggest that the mysteries of the base might stretch beyond aircraft and technology, reaching into the realm of biology. The idea is unsettling. Secret experiments that attempt to blend human and alien life. Whispers of such projects have lingered for decades, keeping the boundary between science fiction and secret science blurry and unsettling. The first hints of these hybrid tales surfaced in the 1980s, mostly in the fringes of UFO circles. They grew from alleged whistleblowers who claimed to witness beings that looked almost human but not quite. Their eyes were too large, one anonymous account said, and their faces seemed stretched in ways I'd never seen. Another whispered, they moved like people, but something about them was off, like they didn't belong here. These quotes, passed from person to person, have become the backbone of the legend. The theory holds that these so-called hybrids are the result of experiments, an attempt to combine human and alien genetics, carried out in hidden labs beneath the desert floor. Whispers of blending human and alien DNA remain in the realm of rumor, perfect for bedtime speculation. The idea raises questions that feel more like the stuff of late-night conversations than laboratory notes. If such hybrids existed, what would their purpose be? Would they serve as a bridge between two worlds? Or are they simply the outcome of curiosity unchecked by ethics? The stories rarely offer answers, only more questions that spiral into the unknown. Actual science presents a far different picture. Genetic engineering has made remarkable progress, but even the most advanced research struggles with the complexity of combining DNA from different species. The leap from human genetic modification to merging with something truly alien is almost unimaginable. Scientists point out that even if extraterrestrial life exists, its biology could be so different from ours that integration would be impossible. The building blocks of life, DNA, proteins, cells, might not even be shared. The odds of creating a viable hybrid, given what we know, are so small that most experts dismiss the idea outright. Still, the stories persist, fed by the secrecy that surrounds Area 51. The base's isolation and the lack of information leave room for the wildest possibilities to take root. When people hear about underground labs and black-budget projects, the mind naturally drifts to what might be happening out of sight. A story about hybrid beings fits easily into that gap, especially when details are scarce and official answers are few. Popular culture keeps the idea alive. Movies, television, and books have all played with the theme of human-alien hybrids, weaving it into the fabric of modern folklore. Shows like The X-Files and countless science fiction novels present hybrids as a logical next step for secret government research. These stories shape how we think about places like Area 51, making the outlandish seem just plausible enough to wonder about. But even within these tales, there's an understanding that the line between fact and fantasy is thin. The biological challenges are immense, and the ethical questions are even greater. Who would volunteer for such experiments? Would these hybrids have thoughts and feelings like us, or would they be something entirely new? The stories rarely dwell on these details. Instead, they use the idea of hybrids to explore fears about unchecked science and the unknown consequences of pushing too far. Occasionally, a new whistleblower surfaces with a story about secret programs and strange creatures. But these accounts lack evidence and are impossible to verify. Most are quickly dismissed by experts, but they never quite disappear. Each tale adds another layer to the mystery, reinforcing the sense that the desert holds secrets that might never be revealed. Whether fact or fantasy, these tales remind us how little we truly know. The idea of hybrid experiments at Area 51 is more a reflection of our own curiosity and imagination than of any documented reality. Still, the stories continue, woven into the larger tapestry of what people believe might be possible behind locked doors and beneath the sand. It's this persistent sense of wonder and uncertainty that keeps people asking what else could be happening out of sight. The questions don't stop at biology. They reach into other corners of the unknown, where some imagine teams of scientists working to understand technologies that seem to come from another world. Among the many theories about Area 51, the idea of reverse engineering alien technology stands out as one of the most persistent. This theory suggests that somewhere within the base, scientists are not just building new aircraft, but studying objects that didn't originate on Earth. The story usually begins with the claim that physical UFOs, recovered from crash sites or other incidents, have been secretly transported to Area 51. In these accounts, teams of specialists work in secure hangars, carefully examining every detail of these unfamiliar craft, hoping to unlock secrets that could change our understanding of science. The core of the reverse engineering theory is the belief that alien propulsion systems are being studied in detail. Witnesses sometimes describe hangars filled with strange, seamless metallic objects, their surfaces unlike any known material. There are stories about alloys that can recover their shape after being damaged, or metals that weigh far less than they should. While shape memory alloys and advanced composites now exist, none match the extraordinary claims made about supposed UFO debris. The gap between what is described and what is scientifically proven remains wide, but the mystery keeps people interested. Bob Lazar's claims in 1989 brought the reverse engineering idea into the mainstream. He described working at a hidden facility called S4, just south of Area 51, where he said he saw 9 different alien craft. Lazar talked about gravity generators and a mysterious fuel, Element 115, that powered these ships. He described propulsion systems that seemed to bend gravity itself, allowing the craft to move in ways that defy what we know about physics. While Lazar's credentials have been widely questioned, his story set the tone for many later accounts. Some details, like compartmentalized work and strict security, appear in other sources, making it difficult to dismiss the theory entirely. The rapid pace of technological advancement in aviation is often cited as indirect evidence for reverse engineering. The sudden appearance of aircraft like the U-2, SR-71 Blackbird, and stealth bombers led some to wonder if these breakthroughs were the result of studying alien technology. However, most experts argue that these advances are the product of years of classified research and human innovation. The secrecy surrounding these projects allows for speculation, especially when the public only learns about them after they have been in development for decades. Propulsion is a particular focus of these theories. Some reports describe UFOs making sharp turns, hovering silently, or accelerating instantly, movements that seem impossible with known technology. The idea that scientists at Area 51 are trying to understand and replicate these abilities is a central part of the reverse engineering story. While physicists have explored concepts like warp drives and anti-gravity, these remain theoretical. The evidence for practical applications is still missing, but the possibility keeps the conversation alive. Energy sources are another area of speculation. Some believe that recovered craft use compact, highly efficient power systems that could transform how we produce and use energy on Earth. The promise of a new energy source, hidden away in a classified lab, is a powerful idea. Yet in the real world, research into fusion and advanced batteries continues, without any clear sign of alien influence. Still, the secrecy and lack of detailed information from projects at Area 51 invite people to imagine what might be possible. The structure of Area 51 itself supports the idea that something unusual might be happening. Workers often describe a system where each person only knows a small part of a larger project. This compartmentalization makes it difficult for anyone to see the full picture, and even harder for information to leak. While this is standard practice for protecting sensitive research, it also means that stories about hidden technology can't be easily disproven. Skeptics point out that there is no solid evidence for the recovery or study of alien technology at Area 51. Physics places limits on what is possible, and most of the extraordinary claims about propulsion or materials haven't been supported by scientific data. But the history of secret projects, like the atomic bomb or early stealth aircraft, shows that major developments can happen out of sight for years. This context makes the idea of hidden research feel plausible, even if it remains unproven. Financial secrecy adds another layer. Large sums of money flow into black-budget projects every year, with little public accounting. Some believe that these funds support reverse engineering programs, while officials say they are necessary for national security. The lack of transparency keeps the door open for speculation. In the end, the theory that Area 51 is home to teams working on alien technology remains just that, a theory. It explains technological leaps and satisfies a desire for hidden knowledge, but it lacks the evidence needed to move from rumor to fact. The line between what we know and what we imagine is thin, and Area 51 sits right at that boundary. There's always another story, another possibility, waiting just out of reach. Some believe the secrets at Area 51 might go even further, touching on ideas that challenge our very understanding of reality itself. Some stories about Area 51 move away from aircraft and technology and turn instead to the idea of time itself. Time is one of those things everyone experiences, but no one fully understands. We measure it with clocks and calendars, but the way it works, how it moves, bends, or might even be manipulated, remains a mystery. For some, the possibility that Area 51 holds secrets about time travel is as intriguing as any story of flying saucers. Science gives us a starting point. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, time can stretch or shrink depending on speed and gravity. Astronauts in orbit age just a little slower than people on Earth, a real effect called time dilation. It's a tiny difference, measured in fractions of a second, but it shows that time is not as fixed as it seems. Still, what most people imagine, leaping decades into the past or future, remains far outside what science has shown to be possible. Beyond these facts, the rest is speculation and folklore. Theories about time, experiments at Area 51, often draw from legends and rumors, not evidence. One of the most famous stories linked to time travel is the Philadelphia experiment. The legend claims that in 1943, the US Navy tried to make a ship invisible and accidentally warped space and time, causing the vessel to vanish and reappear miles away. Some versions describe crew members suffering strange effects or even merging with the ship itself. Over the years, this story has been retold and expanded, but there is no credible documentation to support it. Still, the tale has become part of the larger mythology. Stories connect the Philadelphia experiment to Area 51, suggesting that after the Navy's supposed research ended, it was quietly moved to the Nevada desert. There are no documents or credible witnesses to confirm such transfers, yet the idea persists. The secrecy of Area 51 makes it easy for these stories to grow. When so little is known, almost anything can be imagined. Quantum physics sometimes enters the conversation, adding another layer of mystery. Theories about wormholes and shortcuts through space and time have been discussed in scientific circles, but only as mathematical possibilities. The energy needed to create or stabilize a wormhole is far beyond anything humans can achieve. These concepts remain in the realm of theory, with no evidence that they have been tested, or could be tested, at a place like Area 51. Rumors about time experiments at the base often mention strange visual effects. Some witnesses describe shimmering air, odd mirages, or buildings that seem to flicker at the edge of sight. In the desert, heat and light can create many illusions, but for those looking for signs of secret research, these effects become clues. The possibility that electromagnetic or gravitational experiments could distort time is a popular theme in these stories, even if there is no scientific basis for it. Secrecy is at the heart of every Area 51 legend. The base is known for its strict compartmentalization, with workers only allowed to know what they need for their specific tasks. This approach keeps real projects hidden and makes it difficult to separate fact from rumor. When people see something they can't explain, or when they hear about research that sounds unusual, the lack of information leads to bigger and stranger theories. A test of new propulsion technology or an experiment with powerful electromagnetic fields could sound like time travel to someone on the outside. Popular culture has added to the mix. Movies and television shows often blur the line between science and fantasy, turning ideas like time portals and parallel realities into everyday topics. These stories shape how people see places like Area 51, making it easier for even the wildest theories to take hold. The base's reputation as a home for the unknown means that any unexplained event can become part of its legend. Experts agree that time travel, as it is often imagined in fiction, is not possible with current technology. The science we have supports only very small effects, not the dramatic leaps seen in stories. Still, the idea has a hold on the imagination. It taps into the wish to revisit the past or see the future, a wish that feels right at home in a place as secretive as Area 51. The hangars and runways are real, but the stories about time are harder to pin down. Could time itself be tested in secret halls? The idea lingers in the silent desert air, keeping curiosity alive as rumors and questions move quietly from one generation to the next. For some, The mysteries of Area 51 stretch beyond aircraft and technology, reaching into the very fabric of time itself. Among the most persistent rumors are those that suggest secret experiments with time travel or time manipulation take place deep within the base. The idea is simple but bold. What if scientists at Area 51 have found a way to bend, pause, or even leap through time? Mainstream science sets clear boundaries. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, time can slow down or speed up, depending on speed and gravity. Astronauts in orbit experience a tiny bit of time dilation, aging just a fraction of a second less than those on Earth. These effects are real, measurable, and well understood. But the leap from such small differences to moving freely through time remains far outside what current science allows. Despite this, stories about time travel experiments at Area 51 continue to circulate. Some pilots flying near the base have reported brief instrument malfunctions or odd visual effects, which a few interpret as possible signs of temporal anomalies. Radar operators have described objects that seem to blink in and out of existence. While most experts attribute these incidents to equipment glitches or classified flight maneuvers, the lack of clear explanations keeps the rumors alive. A legendary story often tied to these ideas is the Philadelphia experiment. According to the tale, the US Navy tried to make a ship invisible during World War II and accidentally caused it to disappear and reappear, supposedly warping space and time in the process. Stories connect this to Area 51, though no documents confirm such transfers. The Navy officially denies the experiment ever happened as described, but the legend has become part of the broader Area 51 mythology. Occasionally, former employees hint at assignments involving unusual equipment. Some mention working with devices that distorted light or created odd gravitational effects. Others recall experiments with atomic clocks that showed small, unexplained time differences. These accounts are vague and anecdotal, never providing enough detail to move from rumor to fact, but they add to the atmosphere of secrecy and possibility. Energy consumption at Area 51 sometimes spikes in ways that analysts can't easily explain. Some theorists suggest these bursts could be linked to attempts at manipulating space-time, perhaps even brief efforts to open microscopic wormholes. More conventional explanations point to powerful radar, particle accelerators, or other advanced equipment. The lack of public information about what's really happening means both ideas remain on the table. The geography of the area also adds to the intrigue. The Nevada desert is home to underground tunnels and remote facilities, perfect for conducting experiments that require isolation. The dry air and distance from cities make it a good location for sensitive electromagnetic research. If time experiments were ever attempted, supporters argue, this would be the ideal place. Quantum physics sometimes enters the conversation as well. Discoveries like quantum entanglement and teleportation show that reality can behave in surprising ways at small scales, though these effects don't translate to human-scale time travel. Still, the fact that science continues to reveal unexpected truths about the universe keeps the door open for speculation. Conspiracy theorists argue that classified research at Area 51 could be decades ahead of what's publicly known, allowing for experiments that seem impossible today. Witnesses occasionally describe seeing unusual structures at the base, chambers lined with magnets or circular rooms that look like something from science fiction. Some recall hearing talk of temporal drift among staff. These stories remain unverified and often contradictory, but the repetition of certain details gives them a strange, lingering weight. Official responses to questions about time travel at Area 51 are usually brief and dismissive. Government spokespeople cite the laws of physics and deny that such research exists. At the same time, they sometimes admit to studying space-time for navigation or communication, carefully avoiding any direct comment on the wilder theories. This ambiguity leaves just enough space for the stories to continue. In the end, time travel experiments at Area 51 remain a matter of folklore rather than fact. The stories speak to a deep curiosity about the limits of science and the possibility that someone, somewhere, might have found a way to step outside the ordinary flow of time. Could time itself be tested in secret halls? The question remains, inviting us to consider who might be guiding such mysteries from behind the scenes. Stories about secret research at Area 51 often point to powerful groups operating behind the scenes, and few names come up as often as Majestic 12, sometimes called MJ12. This theory suggests that if there was ever a need to control the government's knowledge and management of extraterrestrial encounters, a committee like MJ12 would be the one tasked with the job. The legend says this group was created in the late 1940s, right after the Roswell incident, and that its members included top military officers and scientists. Their supposed mission: to oversee the recovery, study, and secrecy of any alien technology or contact. The first whispers about MJ12 began in the 1980s, when a set of documents appeared claiming to outline the group's creation and activities. These papers, delivered anonymously to a filmmaker, described a secret committee formed under President Truman's direction. The timing of the document's release matched a period when public interest in UFOs was especially high. The culture was already primed by stories of government cover-ups, and the idea of a hidden committee working without oversight fit right into the climate of suspicion. While some researchers pored over the documents, looking for clues to their authenticity, others pointed out inconsistencies. There were details that seemed to fit the era: real names, official-looking formatting, and references to known events. But there were also mistakes, spelling errors, odd phrasing, and formatting that didn't match genuine government records from the 1940s. When the FBI was asked to investigate, their internal memos called the documents bogus. Still, the story didn't disappear. For some, the very flaws in the documents became part of the mystery, as if they were planted deliberately to provide deniability or to muddy the waters. The MJ12 theory took hold because it tapped into deeper feelings about secrecy and trust. During the Cold War, secrecy was everywhere, and the idea that a small, powerful group could control the flow of information about something as important as alien technology seemed plausible to many. As black-budget programs and hidden government spending made headlines, people grew more willing to believe that entire projects and even organizations could exist in the shadows, beyond the reach of oversight. MJ12 became a kind of symbol for the idea that the most important secrets are managed by people the public will never see. The specifics of the documents mattered less than what they represented: a structure for secrecy, a way to explain how knowledge could be kept from ordinary citizens for decades. For those who already questioned the government's openness, MJ12 made sense as a logical response to the challenge of managing something world-changing. The story of MJ12 has changed over time. As original members named in the documents passed away, new leaks surfaced, each with more dramatic claims. Most have been dismissed by historians and researchers as hoaxes or creative fiction, but the core idea remains. MJ12 stands as a shorthand for a shadow government, one that might operate outside the rules, making decisions about things the public is never meant to know. For many, MJ12 isn't just about aliens or UFOs. It's about the fear that important knowledge could be hidden by a small group with no accountability. The legend has influenced not only how people think about Area 51, but also how they view secrecy in the wider world. It raises questions about who gets to decide what is shared and what is kept locked away. Even those who doubt the specifics of the MJ12 story recognize that it reflects a real concern: the possibility that some truths are managed by committees we'll never meet, in rooms we'll never see. The endurance of the MJ12 theory shows how powerful the idea of hidden authority can be. It doesn't matter that the evidence is thin or that most experts dismiss the documents. The story continues because it speaks to the need for answers in a world full of unknowns. It gives shape to the feeling that somewhere, decisions are being made that affect everyone, but that only a few are allowed to understand. As you listen to these stories, you might find yourself wondering what else could be hidden, and what kinds of secrets might require such careful management. The story of MJ12, real or not, sets the stage for even stranger theories, ones that move beyond technology and secrecy and into the boundaries of what it means to be human. Some theories about Area 51 focus not on technology or secret committees, but on the possibility of human-alien hybrid programs. These stories suggest that deep within the base, scientists may be conducting experiments that combine human and extraterrestrial DNA. The idea of such programs moves the conversation from engineering and surveillance to the boundaries of biology and identity. While no credible evidence has ever been produced, the persistence of these accounts shows how they capture the imagination and fears of many. The origins of the hybrid program theory can be traced back to anonymous whistleblower accounts from the 1990s. These individuals described underground laboratories equipped with advanced containment units and medical technology. One recurring detail is the image of embryos suspended in tanks, said to display both human and non-human features. Other stories mention medical procedures performed on subjects who might not have volunteered. The lack of verifiable details makes these claims impossible to confirm, but their repetition across different sources gives them a certain weight in the world of conspiracy theories. Some accounts suggest that the purpose of these programs would be to create beings who could bridge the gap between two worlds. These hybrids might possess the adaptability of humans and the abilities of something else, perhaps advanced intelligence or unknown physical traits. Theories range from preparing for contact with other civilizations to developing biological defenses or even new forms of communication. Official sources dismiss such ideas as fiction, but the secrecy of the base keeps speculation alive. Descriptions of how these experiments might be conducted vary widely. Some stories mention gene editing, the use of stem cells, or attempts to integrate foreign DNA into human embryos. Others focus on less plausible ideas, like telepathic communication between scientists and their subjects. Even the more restrained versions of these claims remain far outside the reach of known science. The challenges of combining genetic material from two completely different species, especially one that may not even share the same biological building blocks, are immense. Most biologists agree that such hybridization is not possible with current or even near-future technology. The ethical questions raised by these theories are significant. If any part of the hybrid program story were true, it would involve violations of consent, the use of involuntary subjects, and experimentation without oversight. These are not just the usual concerns about secrecy. They go to the heart of what it means to respect human dignity and rights. Even if the subjects were willing, the long-term effects of altering human genetics in such a fundamental way would be unpredictable. The possibility of creating beings who are neither fully human nor fully alien raises questions about identity, belonging, and the responsibilities of those who would create or care for them. Despite the scientific and ethical barriers, the hybrid program theory continues to find new life as genetic engineering advances. Technologies like CRISPR have made gene editing a reality, and the creation of human-animal chimeras for medical research is no longer science fiction. These developments blur the line between what is possible and what is still only imagined. For some, every new announcement about gene therapy or synthetic biology is seen as a step closer to the kinds of experiments rumored to take place at Area 51. Cultural influences also play a role. Stories about hybrids appear in television shows, movies, and novels, making the idea familiar and even expected in discussions about secret research. The image of a hidden lab filled with mysterious beings is a powerful one, and it fits easily into the narrative of Area 51 as a place where the usual rules do not apply. The combination of secrecy, scientific progress, and cultural storytelling ensures that these theories remain part of the conversation. Accounts from former workers sometimes mention unusual security measures around certain buildings at the base, or medical staff who undergo extra background checks. While these details could be explained by standard biosecurity protocols, they are often interpreted as evidence of something more. The lack of transparency creates a space where even ordinary procedures can seem suspicious. As with many stories about Area 51, the truth is difficult to separate from rumor. The hybrid program theory persists because it touches on deep questions about science, ethics, and the unknown. It reflects concerns about how far research might go when it is shielded from oversight, and what kinds of secrets could be kept in a place designed to hide its work from the world. In a place where so little is known, the mind tries to fill in the blanks. Theories about human-alien hybrid programs are just one way people try to make sense of the secrecy. Sometimes the stories themselves become part of the mystery, a reflection of how curiosity and imagination can create new questions, even as they try to answer old ones. Not every secret at Area 51 has its roots in alien technology or advanced science. Sometimes the greatest mysteries are shaped by the stories we're told and the ones we're encouraged to believe. This is where psychological operations, or psyops, come into focus. The idea is simple. Not all secrets are hidden in darkness. Some are left in plain sight, wrapped in layers of rumor and suggestion. Area 51, with its fences and silence, becomes the perfect setting for this kind of strategy. The military has a long history of using misinformation and controlled narratives to influence what people see and think. During World War II, for example, the Allies executed Operation Fortitude, a plan that convinced German forces the D-Day invasion would land at Pas-de-Calais, not Normandy. They used fake radio traffic, dummy tanks, and actors to sell the illusion. The lesson was clear. When you shape the story, you shape the world's attention. This approach didn't end with the war. In the decades that followed, the same principles were adapted for new kinds of secrecy. In the 1950s and 1960s, the skies over Nevada became a stage for something similar. As the U-2 spy plane took flight at altitudes no commercial jet could reach, airline pilots and civilians began to report strange lights and objects moving high above the desert. These sightings were often described as flying saucers or mysterious craft, because the technology behind the U-2 was unknown to almost everyone except those involved in the program. When these reports surfaced, the government faced a choice: reveal the existence of a top-secret reconnaissance plane, or let the public's imagination run wild. Declassified CIA memos show that officials chose to let UFO stories flourish. Rather than confirm or deny what people saw, they allowed the folklore to grow. This hands-off approach worked as a shield. The more the public focused on the possibility of alien visitors, the less they paid attention to the real advancements in aviation technology happening at Area 51. UFO sightings became a convenient distraction, drawing curiosity away from the true purpose of the base. This was not just a passive decision. Psychological operations often work by leaving just enough detail to keep people guessing, never enough to confirm or deny. When the Air Force launched Project Blue Book to investigate UFO reports, part of its role was to manage public perception. While the official purpose was to determine if UFOs posed a threat, the program also helped control the narrative. By investigating sightings, it reassured the public that someone was paying attention, even as the real story remained hidden. The result was a carefully balanced system, enough information to satisfy curiosity, but not enough to reveal the truth. Over time, this strategy shaped the entire culture around Area 51. The more people talked about aliens and secret spacecraft, the more the base's real projects faded into the background. Stories about underground labs, reverse-engineered technology, and government cover-ups became part of the legend. The line between fact and fiction blurred, and the myth grew larger than any single event or piece of evidence. There are moments when the government's approach seems almost deliberate in its ambiguity. The refusal to comment on specific sightings, the lack of clear answers, and the occasional release of redacted documents all help to keep the story alive. Official silence becomes its own kind of communication, allowing the public to fill in the gaps with whatever theories seem most compelling. In this environment, mysteries multiply, and the truth becomes harder to find. The impact of these psychological operations extends beyond the desert. As stories about Area 51 spread, they become part of a much larger conversation about secrecy, trust, and the limits of knowledge. What began as a way to protect military secrets has grown into a phenomenon that shapes how people think about the unknown. The government's willingness to let myths flourish has created a space where almost anything feels possible, and where every new rumor finds an eager audience. Today, the narrative is no longer entirely in official hands. Theories and stories move quickly through the internet, social media, and popular culture. What started as a tool for secrecy has become a self-sustaining engine of speculation. The legends surrounding Area 51 now have a life of their own, sometimes protecting secrets, sometimes obscuring them, and always keeping the public's attention fixed on the unknown. Perhaps the greatest secret isn't what's hidden, but what we choose to believe. The stories that grow around places like Area 51 show how easily curiosity can be guided, and how powerful a well-placed mystery can be. As questions about lights in the sky continue, it's worth considering how much of what we wonder about is shaped by the stories themselves. Area 51 stands as more than just a military site. It's a meeting point for science speculation and the stories we tell ourselves. For some, it's where human ingenuity quietly advances. For others, it's a symbol of questions that linger just beyond reach. The ongoing silence surrounding its operations leaves room for endless possibilities. If you enjoyed drifting through these stories, share your favorite Area 51 mystery in the comments. Now let your thoughts wander beyond those guarded gates, letting the quiet of the Nevada desert settle around you. As you rest, consider how every unanswered question invites a new way of looking at the unknown. Sometimes, the search for answers is as important as the secrets themselves.